Request here tonight to speak about hell. Always a timely topic. The Jewish perspective thereupon. So when a person dies, according to our Masorah, a person does not go immediately to hell. Of course, for a while, the neshama sticks around here. And how long the neshama sticks around on earth is very relative and not unfixed amount of time. Some neshamas will go up to Shemayim almost immediately. Some neshamas will stick around for the Shiva, some for the Shloshim, some for a year, some for many years. So some neshamas cannot bear to part from this world. Now, the neshamas themselves, after they part from this world, they go up for an initial judgment. But that initial judgment doesn't end up in hell or heaven, and it's not even clear that the initial judgment takes place in every case. What we do know is that people who are very much involved in this world, even after they separate from the specific sphere of the world, its material existence, they are lost and they are tormented by what the Mekubalim call Malachi Chavala. Malachi Chavala are damaging angels, harmful angels, which are created by the Averos, the sins that a person himself committed. Those, you don't have to think about them as specific little winged creatures with horns, but that means that there is a torment in the soul which comes from its connection to this world and its incapacity to separate from its desires of this world. Whereas a person unfortunately when we die with all of our personality intact. And our personality had a tremendous desire for matters of this world that does not dissipate after the neshama dies. It continues. So therefore, if you have, let's take an innocuous example, relatively speaking, if a person had a desire for cheeseburgers in this world, they will continue to have a desire for cheeseburgers after they die. Or their neshama craves cheeseburgers. And the torment of not being able to eat a cheeseburger causes tremendous anguish in the neshama. That's called kafakela. Kafakela is when the neshama is catapulted from one end of the earth to another. It's catapulted by its own desires. If they manifest in forms of malach chaval or not is not material. They're counted by its own desires from place to place, and it tries to fulfill its desires, and it cannot. And this is great torment, and again, we don't know how long this lasts. Everybody is different. It says about this, the Mekubalim say that if a person in this situation manages to somehow get into a rock and be incarnated in the rock, that's a great relief for him, because at least he's stationary and not traveling from place to place all the time. So at this point in time, again, a person is not yet in a stage where they can go to Gehinnom. They can't. They still are too much connected to this world and their desires in this world. And this can take, these stages can take hundreds of years. It seems that the Korach and his community, they, at the time of the Gemara, had not yet reached Gehinnom.
To this day?
What?
Did you say to this day?
No, I didn't say this day. I have no idea. But at the time of the Gemara, they did not reach Gehinnom because they were still trying to inculcate within themselves the Moshe Emes B'Soraso Emes, and Moshe is true and his Torah is true, and they were still working on that, and they hadn't accomplished that realization yet. So Gehinnom is a stage which one reaches only when one has realized, and again, everybody's different, the fruitless and senseless and emptiness of this world and its desires. Then you can go to hell. So as I would say, if somebody tells you can go to hell, it's a tremendous compliment, because it tells you, like, you don't have to go through all the stages ahead of hell, which should make you very happy. You should say thank you. So hell is a state of remorse, shame, embarrassment, and sense of moral, ethical degradation when a person realizes how much they messed up in this world. And that is, Chazal could not describe that in terms which we can relate to, because in this world, even when we feel for a certain amount of time shame, mortification, embarrassment, degradation, it passes. Everything passes in this world. Chazal say, "Liba the inche," the heart of people is forgetful. It's a play on words there, right? Liba the inche, the heart of people is inche, is forgetful. People are forgetful. People forget things that happen. We don't live with that shame and embarrassment of all things we did wrong. Otherwise, we'd never be able to function. Yes.
Wait, prior you were talking about like how, you know, how your soul craves like for whatever pleasure in this world. Like you give the example of a cheeseburger, right? So for, you know, like us about shuvas, just personal example, I haven't eaten a cheeseburger in like 3-4 years, right? But I still crave a cheeseburger. So when I die, would that
No.
be a thing?
No. Because since it's only somebody who followed through on their desires, not somebody who's trained themselves. A person who has power of restraint, that's a tremendous power, which lasts also beyond this world. In other words, you realize that this is empty, superfluous, wrong, and therefore you go on. Got it? Okay. So Chazal say that, you know what, we can't describe to you in any abstract sense what Gehinnom means, so therefore let's use fire. Okay, and they say the fire of this world is 1/60th of the fire of Gehinnom. And now the 1/60th always in Chazal means a taste, right? A taste. 1/60th is the minimum amount of taste which you can get. Anything beyond that ratio is nullified. So the way Rabbi Salanter says what to do, and this is, I have never done this because it's frightening. He says, you want to imagine being in hell? You have to work on it slowly. Take one finger. Imagine this finger is on a hot stove. Normally you go like this, but you can't remove it. You can't move it. You're stuck there. Not for 1 second, not for 2 seconds, not for 5 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, gradually building up till you reach 11 months, and only then go on to the second finger. And for the second finger on the fire for 1 second, for 2 seconds, and it can't move, and only have to go through that whole thing, go to the third finger, and gradually go through your whole body, bit by bit, and that's a taste of Gehinnom. Now that is, that's a pretty frightening exercise, and I've never done it.
After a while.
What?
It stops hurting after a while.
You think so?
I know so.
But
Not
that's
for my
not.
fingers, though.
That's not the point. That's not for the point of the exercise. The point of the exercise is to imagine that it still hurts. Otherwise, the exercise doesn't work.
Okay.
Okay? So that shame, remorse, degradation is what cleanses the soul of its sins. In other words, a person in this world could do tshuva. When the word tshuva is related to the word busha. Busha means to be embarrassed from one's sins. And embarrassment from one's sins is the first step of tshuva, the embarrassed to have messed up. But people who don't do tshuva in this world, then they have a lot of busha, which they have to use, embarrassment, which they have to use in the world to come. Yeah.
How do they get embarrassed in hell?
What?
How do they get embarrassed? What are they embarrassed about?
The stupid things they did in this world, Averis they did in this world.
Let's say they're very hard about it. Like they don't
What?
care. Let's say they're still very hard about it.
Then they're not going to Gehenna. They're not ready for hell yet. Hell
Only
is...
after the realization that whatever they've done is wrong.
Yeah.
Then when they start to feel embarrassed, then they immediately get transferred into hell.
Yes.
Or hell's not a place. Maybe hell is the thing that they get forgiven.
It's not a physical place. It doesn't have to be a physical
a
place.
spiritual place.
Yeah, it's a spiritual place.
So it's a place when a person dies, and so their soul actually it's like a place, or it's just a feeling. Hell's a feeling.
No, it's a feeling.
So hell's not a place, hell's a feeling.
Well, sorry?
So hell's not a place, hell's a feeling.
Yeah, but we call it a place because feelings seem to be of less consequence to us than places. So therefore, we imagine it as a place with devils and pitchforks and levels and volcanoes
But in
and
actuality, is it actually?
no, it's all metaphor.
So there's no really hell even with the soul.
Yeah, what's the whole pitchfork
So
thing?
there's no place of hell.
There's
So there's no place of hell.
there's no place, no physical place. It's a spiritual location. Spiritual locations are located not in dimensions. They're beyond our dimensions, right? Spiritual locations are places, are levels at which souls of a similar level congregate. Again, we can't depict that because it's not spatial. But that Gehinnom is a level where all those souls who are undergoing embarrassment are to be found. And again, I'm using space because I can't function without space.
Okay.
But that's not really spatial. You understand what I'm saying?
So really they're not. So they're all on Earth while they're experiencing hell.
I don't know where they are. They're not on Earth. Their bodies are on Earth. The neshamas are in the olam neshamas. The world of neshamas transcends time, transcends place. It's not spatial. Because we can't relate to things that are not spatial. We imagine it as being the Gan Eden on high or the Gehinnom down below, where either the fires are terrible or the weather is beautiful. Yeah.
But does it transcend time also? Can you? Is it like a?
So obviously there's some concept of time because it says that the Rishoyim in Gehinnom they rest on Shabbos.
Right, and they love months.
Yeah, 11 months, but that's only wishful thinking. Wishful thinking. 11 months is wishful thinking. First of all, a person only says Kaddish for 11 months for their parent because they don't want to imagine their parent is a Rosh and is there for the full 12 months. But if you're saying Kaddish for somebody else, you say it for the full 12 months. Okay? And besides that, there are people who have been roasting away for years and years and years.
Right, but that's like the worst of the worst. You know?
Right.
So it's not the majority of people are not like.
Right.
For us, Paul Chuvas, say Kaddish for 12 months.
No, you probably are in much better shape than FFB people.
Right, no, that's what I'm saying. Our parents that are not religious.
Oh, for your parents. No, it's like keep it of aim is that the reason why I do 11 months.
Oh,
If you're not required to keep it of aim, so you can stay for 12 months. So the after that, after 12, the Chazal say after 12 months of Gehinnom, the neshama of a rasha is burnt up, and it becomes ashes underneath the feet of a tzaddikim. What does that mean, ashes under the feet of a tzaddikim? So also Rav Dessler explains. Again, this is a metaphor. It means every neshama, even the one which is the worst of the worst, has had some positive impact on somebody else in this world, whether it's direct or indirect. And that is its eternal spark of life, which means even if it's ashes, it's still not nullified. It's not canceled. It exists as something which is subordinate to the influence it had on the tzaddikim. So if I am able to have an influence on a righteous person in a way which made that person more righteous, or in a way which made the world a better place in general, so then I can, even if I'm a very wicked person, and my neshama has been almost destroyed by all the shame and the embarrassment and degradation, I still have this eternal life through my connection to other people. And this is true according to the Dorshei Rishumos in Sanhedrin, even for the people who says they have no portion in the world to come. They, as themselves, have no portion, but there is nobody who has not done something to have some sort of connection to the world to come. Yeah.
What about people who get like kares? Does that mean that?
So kares does not mean they have no chelik olam habo. Kares is a very interesting punishment, which actually is mostly spiritual and not very physical. And kares means that the neshama, being a long, so to speak, pipeline which goes from you all the way up to heaven, is subject to being cut. and when there's then that pipeline is cut, your connection to Kedusha is severely diminished. And when your connection to Kedusha is severely diminished, you're much more likely to do the wrong thing, and much less likely to do the right thing, because you're not attached to that source of Kedusha. So Kores means, especially because most of the time it says, not always, there's two exceptions in Chumash, it says, Nefesh ahi me'ameha. The soul is cut off from its, I think it's maybe some more, from its nation. What does it mean from its nation? It means that Am Yisrael is a unity in Shamayim. It's called at the level of Yechida. It's a unified entity, and it's unified in turn with Hashem. And you get cut off from that by the Averos that you do. It doesn't mean you can't do tshuva and mend the tear or, tape it back together again. It doesn't mean that you're always going to do the wrong thing as a result. It means your connection to that source is much less.
So chorus is a temporal thing?
Temporal?
Yeah.
It affects, obviously if you don't do tshuva on the Aver for which you chayav kores, so last into olam haba, but it doesn't deprive you of a chiluk olam haba. Okay, it has to be atoned for. It has to be suffering will follow, but it's not. The kores does not mean the loss of olam haba.
So it doesn't mean like your soul is destroyed, right?
No. So the kores obviously is included in any misas basted, in any capital punishment. But if you have a capital punishment, and according to most sources, even if you just have malchus, you get whipped, that eliminates the kores. So that's why they say, I'm not sure exactly how this would have worked, but they say that in the 16th century, in Tzfas, they tried to renew the old and real smicha in order to give the anusim, the Maranos, who are doing tshuva, malchus, whip them in order to atone for any Isser Kores they might have transgressed at the time when they were underground Jews. Okay, so if Kores was a permanent situation, then malchus could not ever rectify it, right? So malchus, obviously, the fact that malchus rectifies it means it's something which is able to be overcome. It's just not necessarily so easy to overcome. Okay, so a person who has the assumption is fasting Chazal that we said before that on Shabbos the people in first of all before we get there are two Gehinnoms. There's Gehinnom Shel Eish and Gehinnom Shel Shelek. There's the Gehinnom of fire and the Gehinnom of snow.
I like snow, so.
Yeah, well, this is the snow which you don't like. So the idea is that for Averos that you did, you get Gehinnom Shel Eish. For mitzvahs which you didn't do, you get Gehinnom Shel Shelek.
Oh man.
Yeah. In other words,
No, that sounds really bad.
yeah. In other words, that if you were for the passion,
It's called Muncie.
for passionate sins, you get fire. For lack of passion, you get snow. Okay, but besides that, it says that every Shabbos the Rishonim go to who are burning, the burning ones. They go to mountains of snow which are pleasant, as opposed to the Gehinnom Shel Shelek. They go to mountains which are pleasant, and they rest over Shabbos. And then, after Shabbos is over, evidently every week, they try to steal some snow to bring back with them to Gehinnom, to keep them cool during the week. And obviously they're caught red-handed, and they have to put the snow back, or it melts, or whatever happens to it. So the obvious question is, you're in Gehinnom, you should realize that this doesn't work. So as long as the person has not achieved full atonement, so they still have this inclination to steal, to grab things which they don't deserve. And that is part of the process to rid yourself of this, and it's obviously very hard to do. But it's interesting that they rest on Shabbos, and I assume that the rest on Shabbos has specifically to do with the fact that Shabbos was embedded in creation as something which is a menucha, no matter what level of creation you're on. You can be at the lowest level of Gehinnom, highest level of Shemayim, Shabbos ba Menucha. That's a principle, a basic premise of creation. There is no way that Shabbos is not going to have a positive impact on something, on you. It's like, you can't go through a rainstorm and not get wet. You can't go through Shabbos and not have a degree of Menucha. So that even the Rishonim and Gehinnom have this capacity to rest on Shabbos and feel some measure of Menucha thereupon. Yeah. Rest. Now, it's a big issue, which we should bring up. How is a person judged? Because they're conflicting views in our sources. Is a person judged by the majority? In other words, if he's 51% mitzvahs, he's good, right? And there's a metaphor of the scales, right? Where you put everything. If the scale is like this, well, I guess the scale is like this, you're okay, right? Because you're more on the positive side. If the scale's like this, you're not okay. It's more the negative side. But that other chazals, which seem to say that every single thing is taken into account, good and bad. There is no weighing of the scales. There's an assessment of each and every nuance and detail of everything you did in your life. So, which one is it? So, first of all, the scales are usually used in the context of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. In this world, it seems that there is a notion of a tzaddik, which is defined by quantity and quality, and a Rosh, which is defined by quantity and quality, and a Beinoni, which are the most people who are some more or less in the middle. But in terms of olam habo, when you get to the ultimate judgment, it doesn't work that way. It's not that if you have the scales are balanced towards good, you get into Gan Eden, scales are balanced towards bad, you go to Gehinnom. No, everything has to be taken into account. Sorry?
So you're judged for everything.
Everything, right. Because everything, like the Nefesh HaChaim says, everything makes an imprint on your neshama. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it imprints not just on your neshama for eternity. So therefore, in other words, I shouldn't say eternity, but past this lifetime. So therefore, everything which imprints on your neshama, positive and negative, has ramifications, positive and negative. And those ramifications have to be dealt with. It's interesting that there's a common, almost universal idea of the notion of Yisachar Zvulun. Meaning that if I give you the right amount of money and you learn Torah, I get either half of your reward or your reward is doubled and I get the 100%, you get 100%, I get 100%. You are all familiar with this idea? Yeah. So Nefesh HaChaim says no such thing. Nefesh HaChaim says it cannot be, because how can your reward, which is imprinted on your soul, transfer to my soul? It can't work.
The reward is for the mitzvah of supporting it.
But that's not what people think of as doing Yisachar Zvulun. I mean, it's a mitzvah to support a Torah scholar, but that's not dividing up equally.
Right.
So
it could be a big mitzvah.
Right, it could be a big mitzvah, right? But that's not.
We don't know the weight.
What?
He's not
How
getting
that
schar for the Torah being learned.
Who's not?
That means he's not going to get schar for the Torah being learned.
Who's not?
The guy who's supposed to.
Yeah, he's getting schar, but not the schar of.
The Torah being learned.
Right, but so there are other sources that are differently. I heard from one of my rabbeim, the Rishon Zelaznik Zatzal, who heard from his rabbi, Rabbi Zalman Meltzer Zatzal, that he told somebody who supported the Kollel in Eitz Chaim in Yerushalayim that whatever he supports, for every time period he supports, let's say he's supporting learning Baba Kama, when he comes up to Shemayim, they're going to give him an understanding in Baba Kama, which is goes very much against the Nefesh HaChaim. There's the Imre Bina, who says that there was one of the Achronim from Yerushalayim from the turn of the 19th and 20th century. He says there are two types of reward and two types of punishment. There's the intrinsic reward and the extrinsic reward. And the intrinsic reward, he says that's yours. It's not transferable. It's imprinted on your neshama. But there's the extrinsic reward. All rewards in this world are extrinsic. In other words, if you're a good boy and I give you a lollipop, that's an extrinsic reward. If you're a good worker and I give you a bonus, that's an extrinsic reward. It's external, right? Intrinsic reward would mean that if I cleaned up my room, I felt really good about myself. That'd be an intrinsic reward because it's something internal, right? If I accomplish something, I feel really good about it. So I love Viktor Frankl. That's an intrinsic reward. But anything anybody else gives to you is an extrinsic reward, right? Same thing with punishments. Most punishments in this world are extrinsic punishments. You throw somebody in jail, you give them a ticket, that's extrinsic. Intrinsic punishment, which means, like Gehinnom, a sense of shame, remorse, and degradation, and regret. So the Imre Rabbeinu once say, I cannot split with somebody else the intrinsic reward, that's mine alone. But I can split with somebody else the extrinsic reward. Because everybody learns Torah, besides the Kedusha, which is in Pnei Neshama, they generate a certain amount of spiritual lollipops. And those spiritual lollipops, I split, the Yisachar splits with the Zvulun. As an interesting tshuva of the Machne Chaim, who was a very distinguished Hungarian person of the late 19th century, he was asked by a poor, there was a wedding, and a poor person came to the wedding and he asked for money. And the rich person at the wedding, I don't remember, it was the person making the wedding, somebody else said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you money if you use some of it, some of the money I give you to buy my Gehinnom. Right? I want you to buy some of my hell from me. Got that?
Wait, who's saying that to me?
The rich person saying to the poor person, I want to buy some of your hell. I have too much hell, right? So therefore, I want you to buy some of it off of me. So
The
like
poor
this.
person?
What?
The poor person?
The poor person should buy the hell, yeah.
Oh, alright.
So the poor person figures, I don't know what the amount of money was. He figured, it's just worth it, you know. I'm suffering anyway. I might as well get some hell and get some get paid for having bought the hell. So then they asked the Machne Chaim if this actually was an effective transaction. So the Machne Chaim said, of course it's not an effective transaction. You can't buy somebody else's hell. But they both have to do tshuva because they were so flippant about it. The guy who sold the hell and the guy who bought the hell, it was for them as if hell is not a serious thing. So therefore they have to actually do tshuva for that. There's another story.
So thinking lightly about hell is a sin?
What?
Thinking lightly about hell is a sin?
Yes, because it means your Yiras Shamayim is not sufficient. But not thinking. This is a different level of thinking lightly. Buying and selling hell. You're nowhere near this.
Wait. Being fear of punishment is Yiras Shamayim?
It's part of Yiras Shamayim. It's a small part, but it is a part. Okay? Most of Yiras Shamayim is fear of God's awesome qualities. But a certain part of it is fear of punishment as well. Okay? So the Yiras Onish and Yiras must go together. So there's a story which they tell about both the Baal Shem Tov and the Vilna Gaon. So you know it's not true. That once, but they're almost identical story, which is that one time in town on Sukkot, there was only one esrog in town. One Arba meeting. Who's heard the story?
I think I've heard.
Okay. So they come, so there's either the Gra or the Vilna Gaon or the Baal Shem Tov. They come to the person who has the esrog and they say, please sell me your esrog. So the guy says, the owner of the esrog says, well, the price is your portion in the world to come. I'll give you the esrog for your portion in the world to come. So the Gra / Baal Shem Tov is very happy because they're going to give away the olam habo for a mitzvah, and then all of their avodas Hashem from here on in is going to be purely out of avos Hashem and not out of any hope to receive any reward. Yeah, that's the story you heard?
Dude.
Okay. That never happened. It could never happen, and it doesn't work out theologically, right? Because I can't give, the Gra can't give his olam haba, or the Baal Shem Tov can't give his olam haba, can sell it to somebody else. It's not a commodity which is on the table,
So can I sell?
which you can sell. What you can do, like we said before, is I can support you when you're learning ahead of time, and then get a part of your learning or your mitzvah.
So now knowing-
But I can't come after the fact and say, okay, I want to buy 10 pounds of your olam haba.
So now, knowing this information, if you go out and sell people your part of your olam haba, is it stealing?
If you do what?
If I sell other people,
You're a part of your olam haba?
Is it
Yes, it
stealing?
is theft. It's definitely a part. Now, there are all sorts of stories about this, you know. There are all sorts of stories about people who saw Hasidic stories about people, you know. I forget which Rebbe it is that the Rebbe told this Chassid, go out and who was very very poor, go out and buy the first commodity you're offered, and the goes out. The first commodity is offered. He got some money for the Rebbe to buy this. First commodity is offered is a rich man. He comes across a rich man, tells the rich man what the Rebbe told him. The Rebbe said, rich man makes fun of him and says, sure, I'll sell you my olam haba. Okay, so he buys the olam haba of the rich man for whatever nickel he's carrying. So then he goes back. So now the rich man goes home and says, you know what? What I did today, I sold my olam haba to the poor person. So his wife says, I'm not living with you if you sold the olam haba. You go buy your olam haba back. So they go to the chassid. So he goes to the chassid, says, "Sell me back my olam haba." So he said, "The Rebbe told me to buy it. I can't just sell it back. We have to go back and ask the Rebbe." So they go to the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, "Yeah, sell it back to him for an exorbitant amount of money." Right, which he proceeds to do.
So the Rebbe just stole.
So the Rebbe tells the rich man, "You should know, before you sold him your olam haba, before you bought back your olam haba, which gave him money." Whatever he needed, and obviously he was a pious and poor person. Before your olam haba wasn't even worth the nickel he paid for it. Now that you bought back your olam haba for that price, your olam haba is very, 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 very great. So all these things are very cute stories, but you can't transfer your olam haba. You can't sell it. It doesn't work that way after the fact, and you can't give it away either. And there's another deeper idea here, which is important, which is it's not fair to Hashem to sell your olam haba, because Hashem wants to give you olam haba. He wants to give us.
Oh, you're right.
He wants to give us reward.
Right.
So therefore, if you sell reward, it's like if it's a chutzpah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who wants to give it to you. So therefore, if you would sell your olam haba, you would be actually doing something negative in terms of your relationship with Hashem, and therefore one should never ever do such a thing, even if it did work.
Impossible, right?
Right, it's not impossible. Okay, any other questions?
No.
Yes.
It's kind of like it's out there. It's an out there question. Why do tzaddikim never ask or never daven to die?
Who says they don't?
They do. I don't know. I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, a person can daven to die if they're suffering severe pain. The Gemara says that not only can a person daven to die, but other people can daven that he should die.
If he's in severe pain.
Yes. You can't take your own life. You can't take another person's life, but you can daven a person die. Whereas the Ran in the Dorim learns that from Gemara in Ksuvas, where he died, even though other people were praying to keep him alive. She saw he was suffering, and she stopped there davening. And here we see you certainly can, and said that Hashem should take him. Here we see they can pray for people to die if all else, that's the reality of things. Okay?
Okay.
Doesn't the suffering increase one's own
Well, like I
problem?
was more
What?
asking.
Doesn't the suffering increase
A person is never required to seek suffering. If a person does suffer and accepts the suffering positively, then that certainly is a great source of benefit and reward. But a person does not have to seek out or even sustain suffering. Gemara has several cases in brachos where somebody was suffering and a great man, and another person came to visit him and said, "Do you want to continue suffering?" And he says, "I don't want the suffering. I don't want its reward." And the other person took away that suffering. You can't take away your own suffering.
Brachos.
Yeah, brachos, right. So nobody has any obligation to suffer.
But I was asking more in the context of like, there's certain people that just reach such a high level, no one else is on that level, like alive right now, anyways.
Well, that happened with Choni Ma'agel. Choni Ma'agel slept, according to the Gemara, and I don't know if we take this literally, but it says he slept for 70 years, and then he came back to life, and he went to Beis Medrash, and he had no friends because all his friends had died, and he felt miserable, and he davened to Hashem to die, and he died.
So he, what? Like,
You got it? So, yeah. Gehinnom is the guy who made the circle around himself and said, I'm not moving from the circle until it rains.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so there's another story about him. The Rip Van Winkle story, in which he said he meets a guy planting a carob tree. Asked him, when are you going to get fruit from this carob tree? Said, in 70 years. So he says, so why are you bother planting it? So he says, for my grandchildren. So he says, it's not going to be around by then. And so Hashem caused him to go to sleep for 70 years. And he woke up, and he saw the grandchildren harvesting the carob tree. That's what the Gemara says. So, but later on, he was miserable. Yeah. Okay. Have a good evening.
Thank you.